All right, and we are live. Hello, welcome back to the AI Kitchen. Good to see you, Chef Kevin. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going well, Chef David. I guess I'm sad to say there was no AI news this week, so we're gonna have to cancel the show. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's been like that for the last like few months. There's just nothing happening in the AI space.
I
It's just so
I figure
boring to
we're
cover
gonna have
this.
to we're gonna have to do like a show every hour on the hour. There's so much news. I mean, it's and I know we both spend a whole bunch of time kind of trying to curate interesting stories that we haven't covered before, but maybe build on or extend stories we've talked about.
Oh, if
So
there's a follow-up, we gotta cover it.
we got to do that. So, okay. So, with
You
that,
ready to
Chef
dig
David,
in?
yeah, dig in. And I think we're going to start with some financially themed stories.
All right. Now this is not my strength, the whole business thing. I like the products. I don't like the behind the scenes, but this is how the cakes get baked, right? Uh, and there's a couple IPOs happening. One is the OpenAI IPO, which is very interesting for a few reasons. I remember one of my best jokes. I did a presentation at Zoomtopia before the pandemic, and it was right before Leonard Skinner was going to go live. So my first joke was, now I could say I've opened for Leonard Skinner, which is great.
Yes.
But the other joke was their IPO had just come out, and Zoom's IPO was legendary. They were so profitable. Their numbers lined up so well. Everyone, like people who weren't in the UC industry, were like, "That's a beautiful IPO." So they made a joke about if you want to have good eye contact, put a picture of something beautiful next to the camera, like your kids or your pets or Zoom's IPO. Huge.
Uh,
This IPO seems a little less beautiful, a little more complicated. One fact that jumped out at me is that for every dollar they get in income, they lose $1.22.
yeah.
That and like I said, business isn't my strength, but from what I do know about business, that's not good. Ideally, when you spend a dollar, you should get a dollar and a penny back in revenue. You shouldn't lose. It shouldn't, when you get a dollar, it should cost you 99 cents. There we go. When you spend a dollar, it should cost you 99 cents to get that dollar.
Yes, the
It shouldn't
cost of
cost you a
goods
dollar
sold.
twenty-two.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There
So
you
see, I
go.
told you I'm bad at this, but so that's amazing to me. That they've been losing. I know they've been losing money, but that's losing a lot of money. While being one of the coolest, hippest, most valuable companies on the planet. So that's just weird. And the other thing is the way this is being framed is, I mean, it's right in the title there.
Yeah.
This article went into depth about how what they're going to use the money for and to get compute. And I just keep hearing about these data centers, data centers. I heard yesterday that Google pays SpaceX.
Yeah.
SpaceX's data centers. They build rockets, and they were smart enough to build a bunch of data centers. They're paying them $1 billion a month. As is, shoot, it was Google and one other company is paying. Um, was it OpenAI? Was it
I think
OpenAI?
Anthropic did a deal with
Oh, it was
them. But once
Anthropic.
again,
That's what it was.
everybody is throwing money at
Two
data
billion
centers
dollars a
either.
month
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
SpaceX. So obviously getting compute is the big thing. And when you go public, you get a ton of money, just comes and just rains money all over you. And that's what they're going to spend it on, I guess. It didn't literally say data centers, but how else do you get compute?
Yeah, no. I think it's clear that there's huge infrastructure build out. None of the frontier model companies are generating revenue that exceeds their investment, but it's a big bet on first mover advantage. Get the customers. OpenAI, ChatGPT, is the most used AI assistant really because they burst onto the scene and
Mhm.
got that first mover advantage. And so really it's a race. Everybody is like, okay, if we get to, you know, AGI, artificial general intelligence first, then everybody's going to flock to us because we're going to get that, flywheel effect, and AI is going to improve our AI, and then nobody's going to be able to catch up. So this is the big bet. I mean, but it's a huge bet. The interesting thing um, is, there's talk of this AI bubble, Chef David, but one of the interesting things is with this IPO, and then the next one I'm going to talk about Anthropic's IPO, and then there's the SpaceX IPO. With all these IPOs, it's not so much the AI bubble, but there's investors who are selling off other stocks
Hmm.
to have liquid cash to invest in these IPOs, and that's causing a bit of a disruption in the market, right? So it's different than the AI bubble where it's overvalued, which potentially that is the case. Um, this is just people saying, I don't want to miss this opportunity to participate in the IPO. And so they're selling off other kind of, other stocks, and that's causing those stocks to go down.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And they
yeah,
are all overvalued, but the SpaceX one is comically overvalued. Like the amount of growth that they'll have to reach that valuation is just and that's what you do with an IPO. You overvalue, you want the stock to be high, but from the analysis I've read of the SpaceX IPO, it's beyond.
well, I think in our last stories, we'll talk about kind of the path for, SpaceX. It's now, like Elon Musk has merged the companies. So it's like his AI company and SpaceX, and it's all kind of merged together. So we'll talk about physical AI as the last story. And that's really the path outside, not so much the space exploration, which is a longer term goal, but the physical AI that is now part of SpaceX. So let's go to my first story because it's effectively in the same theme. Um, this is Anthropic, filing for, well, they've filed this confidential filing that starts the IPO process. Once again, similar to the OpenAI IPO, looking for it to be potentially $1 trillion valuation. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that they raise $1 trillion,
No.
um, but that means that their valuation is $1 trillion based on the current raise. I think that they were looking to raise, a pittance, Jeff David, just maybe like 80 billion or something
Yeah.
like that, just like pocket change. But once again, um, I mean, it talks about they had explosive growth, its revenue ballooned to 47 billion, but the thing is they're spending more than that. So they're generating a lot of revenue, but it's similar to, they didn't do that exact calculation that you shared in the first story, but it is clear that all of these frontier models,
They're losing
they're,
money.
yeah, they're generating billions of dollars, but they're spending billions of dollars plus billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So,
For
yeah, so
every dollar I
absolutely.
give Claude, Claude is costing them. I'm using the heck out of my Claude. I'm getting my $100 worth. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah,
costing them more than it.
absolutely. Yes, yes. And so, and
I'm burning those tokens.
let's drill down on that a little bit more. So I think go to your next story.
Oh wait,
Hopefully we
I
got
have
these.
one. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
I have one a side story on this.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you caught this, but I thought it was really funny. Uh, Anthropic came out with a press release right before they did this, or about the
Yes.
same time, and they said that, guys, Claude is getting so smart. Anthropic, our AI is getting so smart that it's even scaring us, and we think the whole world should pause development of AI. We'll do it if everyone else does it, which is like, come on.
Right.
So it's like that's a joke. It's not going to happen. We're going to do it, but if everyone else agrees to stop development of AI, we will stop all development of AI because our AI is so good. It's so scary. If we come out with an IPO in a couple of days, you should buy a bunch of stock.
Yes.
I mean, that was the most incredible marketing gimmick I've ever, and it's the most blatant and obvious and ridiculous marketing gimmick I've ever seen in my life. We're going to stop development on our own thing because it's just so good.
Yes,
Come
yes.
on.
There you go. Oh,
Is
hey,
it me?
I found the part, Jeff David. See,
Oh,
it's like Anthropic 1.25 billion. So
per month.
even more than a billion per month to
Yep.
SpaceX, right?
Google's doing the same. So SpaceX is
Yeah, yeah,
getting,
yeah.
do the math on that, like 30 billion a year.
But I think, we've talked about this before. It's like it's kind of like this cross-pollination. I mean, that's a positive spin on it, but or it's just funny money where the
Yeah.
people investing are buying services from the other people, right? So, um, yeah, there you go. So okay, so
So on to my next
so
story.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see what we'll
Wait,
see.
the Apple one or the physical one?
No, no, no. Well, here, let me go to my next story
Go
here
to yours?
because
Okay.
it stays in this whole pricing thing, right? Because and the whole financial theme. There is no question that um, companies need to figure out a way to monetize the investment that they're making in AI because it is expensive to train the model and it is expensive when you do inference, which is using the model. So this is the first time I'm actually sharing my own article. There you go, a little self-serving, but on no jitter.
This is a good
I
one though.
looked at yeah, this is like a giant 2,800. I started it with 750 words, then it became 2,800 words to explore this. But AI is impacting pricing of, UC as a service and contact center as a service, because as these companies, add AI capabilities, no one, you know, um, expects the vendors to give away AI for free. But what's happening is as people are using the AI features, like you said, you're getting your value from using Claude. Well, at some point, if you're paying, and I know you're on the premium plan, $100 per user, per
Max.
month, right, the max plan. So but if you're costing Anthropic more than $100 per month, which you probably are because you're using it like gangbusters and doing some great things for your Feeds OBS app, uh, um, they're going to have to eventually either change the pricing. And so this article looks at the UCaaS and CCaaS vendors who are adding AI. So they're paying OpenAI or Anthropic or Google because they're using some of their services.
Or all of them.
They have to pass that along. And so all this nice predictable per seat pricing that you used to have for the contact center, you'd say, I pay $80 or $120 per agent. Now it's like you pay a base fee, but if you use a lot of AI, you might get a bill that is, a lot more than that. So, this whole bundling, it isn't dead. But here's the challenge though, is that, consumers, really need to think about this because I cover why vendors like this because it pushes the risk off to the users. If the users use more, they get a bigger bill. The vendor likes that. That drives up
Yeah.
revenue. But certainly, when you had a human, if I hired you, David, and you did really good work, yeah, maybe on your annual performance review, you'd say you want an increase or whatever, but you don't say, well, I wrote, I wrote three legal briefs, right? You're an attorney. So I wrote three legal briefs this week. So I'm going to charge you 50% more because on average, I just do two. Humans, were predictable costs. AI teammates with consumption billing, you could be surprised. And the more you use it, the more it's going to cost you, which is a bit of a challenge because that drives adoption much lower. And so,
Mm.
one of the things I think we're going to see is there will be a competitive advantage for um, organizations that figure out how to offer predictable costing. And one of the things we're seeing is, and this ties into Microsoft had their Build conference, and this is just an example. So Microsoft invested, I think, 15 billion plus dollars in OpenAI. Now they have a deal with Anthropic, but they also are building their own models because this allows them to control costs and reduce token costs. And,
And
so
by the
they
way,
can,
the name MAI Code One Flash, it just rolls off the tongue. Just amazing
yes, there you
marketing.
go.
Amazing
You know,
marketing.
Chef David, Microsoft is great at naming with huge sarcasm. I say that. So there you go. So, but this is where I think we're going to see more of.
They need to
We're
do
going to see
this.
more of vendors optimizing costs, and hopefully, and this is in my article, I'm like, it's not clear all vendors will pass those costs along, but we're seeing that because if you run your own um, model internally, you can control costs, right? Because you're not making all these API calls. And so increasingly, we are seeing companies do that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So Microsoft has some new models. I think we'll see, it's if you're a small company, you can't do this, but a larger company, you can, take an open source model and refine it. So Microsoft worked with, for example, McKinsey, the big consulting firm, and they created a custom model that McKinsey can run. Um, I know Zoom does some stuff with their own models, right? So they don't have to call on some of their frontier model partners because not every question needs the super expensive big brain, right?
Yeah.
And I think your next story is going to be about Apple Siri, and they do a bunch of things where they say, hey, I can maybe run it on the device and I don't have to go into the cloud, right? And so,
AI
um,
on the edge. That's why it's such a big conversation. Look at
yeah, and,
our
and
video
certainly with
conferencing
AV,
industry. Cameras have to have AI on the edge, and we're like, what for? Like, just we're gonna need it, and this is why.
yeah, so there's latency issues and there's cost issues. So I think
Cost
that
issues.
we're going to see AI is tremendously valuable, but if the cost, like back to, oh, that's fine. OpenAI's got a lot of capital. So if they're spending over $1 to generate $1, that works for them because they can raise, billions of dollars. For a normal organization, you can't spend more than you make.
Yeah.
And certainly for an individual, like we use it, AI personally, whether it's to plan a trip or recipes or other things, you can't spend more than the value you get out of it. So I think we're going to see a whole focus on, yeah, doing wonderful things, but also cost optimization. So
Yeah.
let's go
I
to
think.
your
Well, let
next
me
story.
have a couple thoughts on
Okay.
that. Um. Uh. First of all, I think part of the problem is this is so new. We haven't figured it out. I mean, this is a brand new product category, and the fact that we don't have the pricing completely figured out yet, you gotta expect that. It does have to be some sort of consumption model. I hate consumption models, but I have to admit that there's just no other way. And the reason I hate them, when I started as an attorney, I was going to the library, it was in the 90s, to go through the law books. And that was going to the library every day. It was leaving the office and going to the library. And we got this thing called Westlaw, which was amazing. And you could buy, it was like $10,000. You could buy the CDs, and then
Okay. Right.
you'd have the whole library in the CDs. And I couldn't get my boss to spring for the 10,000, but the next year, took them a while, they had the first online version of it, and you can go online and look through. It was like going to the library. It was amazing. Billed by the minute and
Oh,
expensive.
wow.
Yeah. So I would sit down with my paralegal and we'd plan out our attack, and we'd log in and we
It goes, yeah.
quickly and log out and then look at it. We couldn't search around. We couldn't review it. We couldn't. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy. It makes me not want to use it. And you're supposed to, if I use it more, it's better. Any product you should. Have me using more, not. So I've always hated the consumption model. As much as we hate our subscriptions, I want a subscription. I don't want to buy every movie that I watch. I'll get my Disney Plus. Um, and and I think Anthropic does an amazing job of masking their consumption use as a subscription. You go in for free, and they're keeping track of your tokens. And when you
Right.
reach a certain much, they say you're done. You can either wait a few hours to start again, or you could pay. And so you really pay, it doesn't feel like you're paying per token, but you're paying per token. So you pay them $20 a month, you get a certain amount of tokens. And when you use it, they don't say, buy more tokens. Well, they do actually. They say you want if you could buy more tokens, but I say no. They say go up a tier. So I go up a tier, and now I'm on a high enough tier that I never get near my limit. I don't even know what my limit is. They're counting my tokens. I'm still paying per token, but it feels like a subscription. Now, how do we do that in UC? How does Teams do that? How does Zoom do that? I don't know. I don't know
Well,
the
and they
answer.
try to, right? And I think that this will be a competitive advantage if organizations can figure out a tier, like you pay the $100 for the max plan and you feel like you can use it. Because I think, one of the challenges
I
is
don't. I don't think it's going to work with Zoom and Coca. People
no,
rejected
no.
it. I don't want to pay $20 a month for Teams, another $10 a month for the AI. It's an
I don't
extra.
know, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like I think that if they figure out a way so that the typical user has predictable pricing, because one of the people, and I really appreciated this comment, to my pricing article said, yeah, like as government and municipal services start using AI, it's like, what happens if you're using AI in like an emergency response center for E911 or whatever, because that's helping you decode or
Hmm.
locate the people or whatever. Like these services can't hit a limit and then say, sorry,
Yeah.
you run out of tokens. And so they're just going to have to not, put any limits on the consumption billing, but
Yeah,
that becomes
and there's other
problematic,
issues.
right?
I've heard of all these companies started using Claude to save money on coders. It's gotten so expensive for some of them. Some of them are rehiring coders for specific things that humans can do just as well as AI. Saying because our AI coding is too expensive. And we heard that story about someone left the tap running, left their Claude or
Yes.
whatever tap running, and spent $500 million on it. So those things are, I think those things are because it's new and we haven't figured it out. But it just shows that it is a problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I do think that if you're gonna provide a great product, we've talked about don't call it AI or whatever, but if you're gonna use AI to deliver a great product, figure out a way, in my opinion, if you can figure out a way to not make it consumption billing and you can average things out, like it's like what insurance companies do, right? You
Yeah,
have actuaries, right? So get actuaries to figure it out so that you can charge a flat fee. And I think when we talk about Apple Siri, they said there may be some limits on like things that are inference compute expensive, like image generation or whatever.
yeah,
I mean, that's
videos.
easier to enforce on a personal device than on a corporate device. But anyway, pricing is going to be a huge thing because the value of AI is unmistakable. But if the value exceeds your cost, however you judge that, that becomes a problem.
It, if you punish people for using something, that affects adoption. So
Well, and that's
if
right.
you
And
if you
that's what
punish
like
usage,
Joseph,
you're going to get less usage, and we don't want less usage.
no,
But
and Joseph Williams, a comment to my article, very smart guy, um, from often from the economic perspective, he's like, I've seen no evidence of companies being able to kind of control their AI spend. So therefore, they're probably going to have consumption billing. But my kind of response was, yeah, but exactly to your point, Chef David, well, then companies are going to limit adoption or
mhm,
limit deployment of these AI tools because they don't want a $500
yeah,
million bill,
I
right?
think to wrap it up, I think they can't just give it away. It has to be some
Right,
sort of consumption based. If it feels like consumption, I'm going to use it less. If you
right.
mask the consumption that it feels like a subscription, which is what Claude has done, um, that works for me. That works for me,
Yes.
and I don't think I'm alone in not liking that consumption feeling, even if I'm paying for consumption at the end of the day. So I think
Yeah.
the answer is to yeah, you got to do consumption, but mask it, hide it, make it feel
Yeah.
like it's.
Good point.
All right, on to
Good
our
rub.
next story. We talked about this before. Apple's been struggling. Apple got
Uh,
sued because they said they're going to have, buy our new phone for $1,200 because in a few months we're going to have the new Siri. And then they didn't have the new Siri. And the people said, well, hold on. I bought this new, you told me if I buy this new phone, I'm going to have the new Siri. And I spent a lot of money on it. I want my Siri. So they finally got it going. And I'm a little confused because in this article, this is from Apple, they say it's powered by Apple Intelligence, but I read another article that said it's powered by Gemini, which is what we
It is
reported
powered by
earlier.
Gemini. Yeah. Even
Oh,
at
okay,
even at
Apple.
the Worldwide Developer Conference, they had a whole slide that was like Apple and Google and
Yeah,
you know
the
and
word Gemini is not in this article. I have a problem with that.
yeah, I
Um,
think they call it Apple Intelligence,
Apple
but it's like
Intelligence.
under the covers, it's Gemini.
I bet if
Yeah.
I click on this, I'm not gonna. I never click on a link while I'm sharing screen because you don't know what'll pop up. But I bet if I click on this link, it'll say that. But this taps into everything we're saying because our phones are so powerful. They can handle a little bit, not a lot of AI, but they don't have a GPU in there, but they can handle a little bit of AI. We could do a little bit on the edge, and it might be cheaper, might be less tokens. I don't know, to have Siri doing some of the thinking in my hand as opposed to sending it up to Claude's data centers that are SpaceX, Elon Musk, that whole deal. So I love the idea of AI on the edge. I love the idea of it being on our personal device. Don't make me buy a new device unless it's really cool. I do like buying devices, but I have a great handheld compute device. Let's use that. Um, and Siri was getting embarrassing. Come on, Siri was The time is 2:03. No, come on now. We've had ChatGPT for 100 years in AI time now. It needs to be smart. And I think that this is where they're running into some difficulty. It wasn't in this article, but I saw another article that they might have problem rolling this out in Europe. The whole point is everything else is on my phone. My email's on my phone. My notes are on my phone. My voice messages are on my phone. Everything's on my phone. If Siri can tap into all that stuff, which it should be able to because it's their phone, wow, does that become I always say the power of AI is about the data. That's why I like Zoom AI, because Zoom sits in my meetings. My phone
Right.
is in my hand. That has all my data. So if this is done the way I think they're trying to do it, and if it really meets its promise, this is going to be amazing. Right? Am I
Yeah.
getting
Okay.
caught up in the hype?
No. I think you're right. So a couple things. Yes. So Apple Intelligence or Siri Plus or whatever they're calling it is not available in the EU because Apple says they're going to do really smart things. So they're going to decide when you ask Siri something if they can run it locally. And even though you said, Chef David, that your phone doesn't have a GPU, the truth is the from the Apple iPhone 15 onward, it has neural accelerators. So it actually has a chip designed to run AI like a GPU. And so the newer phones can do a whole bunch on the phone. Now, the problem and the reason it isn't available in the EU is if it decides that it's something that can't work with your context because you ask something where it needs to do web something or whatever,
Mhm.
it calls Google Gemini model, and it's like supposedly a Gemini model that's running in Apple's data centers and tuned or whatever. But the truth is, in the EU, it goes outside what they call the EU data boundary. So right now, it doesn't keep the data, your data, inside of the
Mhm.
EU, and that's a problem for just EU AI regulations, right? But I think a lot of people are excited. They said the announcements. So this, once again, this was Apple's developer conference. This is similar to a couple of weeks ago, you had Microsoft's Build, which is their developer conference, but that always foreshadows
Mhm.
what's going to come to regular consumers because they release it. They say, hey, developers, we're going to do this. And then they'll release kind of beta versions of this so developers can figure out how they can leverage it or add add-ons or what have you, right? So I think a lot of interest and also some level of skepticism because, back to you were saying that lawsuit, Apple has, you know, talked about this before. And so, people are like, does Apple have the AI chops to deliver this? And I would say that 100% Google and Google DeepMind have the chops. So I think Apple was smart in partnering. Um, some people did point out that Apple has done a fantastic job about focusing on privacy, right? Your iPhone does a great job of protecting your privacy. But then, and now you have Google, the world's largest advertiser, who is mining all of our data by
Mhm.
offering, Gmail and all these services for free because it's not free because they're mining your data. And so, is Apple going to be able to tell a good story about how they continue to protect your privacy? Um, and I think that that'll be an interesting
I
evolving
think I
story.
think
But I
part of it is
want
not mentioning Google or Gemini at all in this release.
and some of the marketing materials at,
Yeah.
at the developer conference, they were much more transparent and had the big Google Gemini logo with the Apple logo and kind of,
But at
so
the end of the day, I think Apple has definitely struggled. There's a lot of companies. AA is, again, I keep saying it's new. You got to give people a break if you haven't figured it out. Apple's definitely struggled. I thought they're going to have their own AI. They couldn't get it done fast enough. Hardware, it seems like they got it. They got that new chip in there. But despite the struggles and the UE thing isn't EU thing isn't helping at all. This has to work. At the end of the day, this has to work. This is
well,
the default.
2.5 billion devices, I think at
This
the
is the
latest count,
default personal
run
compute
iOS,
device.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
So
this is this
so
is what is in everyone's pocket,
yeah.
and AI is coming, and it's like if It has to be there. It just has to be there. It's on my computer. It's on my iPad. It has to. Well, it's going to be on my iPad. It has to be on my phone. It has to be on all my devices. And the
Yeah.
one that's in me, with me in my car, with me when I'm at Home Depot, and I'm trying to figure out which size socket to use. Right? I mean, you know,
No, you're right.
they have to make they can't
Apple
fail.
will
They
get
can't
this.
fail.
They will get this right because the other thing is this will drive people to upgrade their iPhones. iPhones have been delivering fantastic revenue for Apple,
Yeah.
but they're running out of just features to add better cameras.
Better
Like, what they
camera
like the iPhone
again.
17 Max has like three cameras, and you're running out of cameras that you can add.
Yeah.
So I think that they've got to they got to get it right. And I use Siri all the time to set timers or incredibly lame stuff, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really want to be able to ask detailed questions,
Yes.
and so I'm super excited about this because my family we're deep into the Apple ecosystem for our phone devices. So
Yeah. And there's billions out there. So all right. So on
there
to
you
my
go.
next story.
Sure.
Okay. This I thought was interesting. It's a little bit off screen, but it's the idea of an AI living lab, and they call it a physical lab, which makes you think it's a physical thing, but it's not. It's an AI thing for physical stuff. And
Right.
I'm gonna keep this short because we're going long today, and we still have another thing to show. But
Yeah.
the idea is there's these robotics companies, and you've seen the was it Boston Dynamics that has the walking robot? If you watched over the years, now it gets up and dances and does backflips off of stuff, but the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
it was falling over. It was falling over all the time. And it was this 200-pound metal thing falling over and bumping it. They had it like hold up on, and that's how they had to teach it because they didn't have simulations. They didn't have AI, they
Right.
didn't have simulations. So they would have to build a robot and let it knock stuff over. If the next generation of robots is going to be washing my dishes, I don't want to train it by bringing it into my kitchen and having it break 1,000 dishes before it learns how to wash a dish.
Right.
That's just we have simulations now. We have AI, or we should, and that's what this company is going to do, or is doing. They're launching this AI living lab so that these robot companies can come in and say, "Hey, I built a dishwashing robot. Let's plug in my robot's brain into your simulator and have it while it's just sitting there, imagine itself washing 1,000,000 dishes till it gets good at it, and then we'll let it in the kitchen." Um, why hasn't someone else thought of this, right?
Well, I think Nvidia, like you see, this is built with Nvidia technologies. Nvidia, I don't know, 6 months and maybe even 12 months ago, they talked about their whole tool set that allows this to happen because exactly what you do is like you're feeding the sensor input. Because you think about washing dishes, you pick up a dish, and as humans, like, okay, fine, it's a regular dish. Now the dish has, I don't know, you did some like olive oil on it. So now the dish is slippery. Now the dish is China. Now the dishes. You have all these different things, and as you
Slightly
said,
weird shapes.
yeah, as you said, Chef David, it's like you don't to get physical things, you would have to have every dish in the world and then allow the robot to break lots. That would be expensive and impractical. So in these physical world simulators, they can send the sensory input as if the dish has olive oil and is slippery, or as if it's a weird shape.
Exactly.
And they can go through these millions of simulations. And you can do it. Remember, when you do this, you don't have to do it in real time. Because maybe if you did this in real time, it would take 100 years to go through all
Yeah,
the test cases. You can speed up the clock. And so now you can do 100 years of simulation in, a month or whatever, right? So this is super cool.
yeah.
And if you don't have anything else to say, I'm going to say if you do these simulations, we can go to the final story, which is kind of a fun story. But this
Yes.
is what this can this
Let
is
me
what this can do.
let me set it up here.
Yeah, there you go.
And I wonder, did this guy actually he couldn't have simulated. He must have had a lot of fallen over robots as he was trying to
Yeah, and
figure this
I
out.
did some research into how he did this, so I can talk about that when we.
Okay, so this is a clip from America's Got Talent, and it is a robot dancer with his robot dancer friends. We could end it on that big moment there.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's pretty cool. So these Chef David were there was eight. These are the Unitree G1 humanoid robots. And so you can pick up a basic demo model for about 20K, but if you're going to program them and you need the whole dev kit to do something like this, you're looking at more 50 to 70K. So probably on stage there you had like $350,000 worth of robotic hardware. Um, so some of this was they did some motion capture of humans dancing, but this certainly so some of it's programmed. But the AI is, all these robots are adapting to the floor, and we talked
mhm.
about dishes or whatever, but the floor has different things. The floor could be uneven.
If you push one, it doesn't fall over. It backs up and then
Right. It
repositions itself.
constantly is rebalancing. And at the beginning of the clip, he was able to kind of like gesture with his hands
Push
to
them around.
just, yeah, move them around and get them all set up. So that was, the interesting thing. So I love that because that was a great example of human creativity augmented by AI. And I guess, my question to you, Chef David, is this the future of movies and illustration and song creation? Is it going to be more human AI collaboration?
Yes.
Um, okay.
And
And
some
and
people
I
hate and some people hate that,
some
and I
people
get
hate
it.
that, but I think that
Just hate
that's a
the
great thing.
idea of it without even looking at the result. They just hate the idea of it. And I get that and I respect it. I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing. I'm just saying it's totally happening. There's a video I have to show you. You know Neil deGrasse Tyson, the
Of
scientist guy?
course.
Love him. Someone made a video, a movie of him as a superhero, and he's flying around with other scientists and fighting bad guys. And and when I first saw it, the quality was so good. I'm like, oh, I'm like, it's amazing what you could do with these 10-second AI clips. It's like 5 minutes long. I mean, it goes on. Maybe it's like 10 minutes. It's long. It's way longer than I thought
Right.
it would be. It's got a story. It's really, really. It's like I don't want to say it's as good as the Avengers, but some of the effects are as good as the Avengers. The
Wow.
superhero fighting and flying around, it's amazing. And people are sharing around, be like, Hollywood better be scared because this is great. It's so I got to show it to you. It's so cool. But
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
part of
And
me that
so,
says, I feel bad for the human beings who used to do stuff like this because this is coming. It's
well,
happening.
remember, not too long ago, all animation was hand drawn on individual cells, and then there was, computers came in and they made it easier for the animators, but certainly there was still skill for the animators. I mean, now arguably, AI might be able to replace some of the animators, but ultimately, I think this, whatever AI recipes to boost your business, we're big fans of like using AI to be more effective because I think what you said, Chef David, is 100% true. This is coming. So I think, whatever, dance with your robots. I don't know, like experiment, right? And man,
Yeah.
it's like
You just
if
got to
it
accept
wasn't
it.
so expensive, I would love to have one of
I
those
want some
Unity
dancing
robots.
robots
Imagine, we could do some fun things with that. It could definitely wear a chef's hat.
for sure.
That is clear.
It reminds me of a story I heard about George Lucas, and they're making the prequels in the '90s when they started using the CGI.
Oh,
The first
right,
three
to
Star
add
Wars
things.
movies was all models.
Yeah.
I mean, the spaceships were models, and the creatures were all models. They would do like the claymation thing where they move them one bit at a time, and the ones they made in the '90s, the prequels, the Anakin Skywalker ones, they had computer graphics. And there was one scene where I think the actor who played Obi-Wan, the young Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm not sure. I think it was him. He walked onto the set. He's about to start a scene, and he realized he didn't have his wig on. They wear wigs to look at the character. He's like, "Oh, I forgot to hold on. I got to go back to." And George Lucas said, "No, we're all set up. Let's just record it, and CGI will put it on after." And it makes me sad. I don't know why, but that story makes me sad. I'd be happier if George Lucas said, "Oh yeah, we'll take a minute, put on the wig, and do it right." And I don't know what scene it is. You probably can't tell. It didn't affect me watching the movie. I didn't say when I was watching the movie I could tell the CGI did the wig and I didn't like it. No, I couldn't tell. But there's something about that story that stuck with me all these years, and all of these stories that we're telling about what's happening now. I'm like, it's the George Lucas wig story all over again. Um,
But it's so okay. I gotta say, is there not an irony to this story making you sad from the guy who's wearing a digital chef hat?
I'll wear a digital chef. And not only that, in that same scene, he takes out a lightsaber. It's not a real
Right.
lightsaber. They added that in with CGI. I have
What?
no.
You mean
I,
those are real? Oh my God.
yeah,
You
and then he
know
flies
you're
away in a spaceship.
spoiling.
I have no problem with the CGI spaceship. I have no problem with the CGI lightsaber, the CGI Wookiees, but the CGI wig, put on the wig.
I think it's
That's
because you're a hair
makes no
guy.
sense.
I think, Chef David, because
Maybe
you're a
that's
hair
it.
guy.
By the way, I brought back the purple for Infocom. I have a little purple going.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
But
that's awesome. I thought that was
marketing,
AI added. So there you go.
you can't tell. By the way,
Okay. Well, that was a good
one last
fun
thought.
story.
One last
Yeah.
thought. When Kevin showed me that video that we showed you, the dancing robots, I wasn't sure if it was a real video or an AI video because I've been seeing so many AI videos of that show going around with people doing ridiculous stuff. So it's become such a part of our world that now anytime I see a video, one of my first thoughts is this AI?
Yeah. So it was a good video. Go out, buy a Unitree G1 robot,
Or 8
20K.
of them.
Unitree, if you're watching, please sponsor the AI Chef Show and send us a robot because the AI Chefs will dance with the robot if you send us one.
Yeah.
How about that?
And we'll see if it could wash our dishes. All right, thanks,
There you
everyone. We'll
go.
see you next week.
Thank you.